United Airlines is one of the largest airlines in the world with almost 500 aircraft in its fleet. Maintaining these older aircraft and keeping them up to date with their newer fleet additions can sometimes be a challenge, and today I take two flights with United, one on a 30-year-old 777-200 and another on a brand new 737 MAX 8. How will these two flights compare? Stick around to find out. United Airlines was founded in 1926, making it officially the oldest U.S. airline. Over the years, United has had numerous different types of planes in their fleet. United is also one of the leading operators of the Boeing 777. However, the older 777s in their fleet are nearing 30 years old. Our journey begins today in T7 of Los Angeles International Airport, where I will be taking a red-eye on one of their 777s to Chicago. Alright, well, one thing that's not great about booking a 777 flight on United is if you don't know if you're going to get an ER or just a regular domestic LR. And this is a regular domestic LR, unlike our last trip, which was on a domestic ER. I think there's only like 22, 21 domestic ERs in United's fleet. So this is an older 777-200. There is no seatback IFE, which isn't a huge deal. I do have my iPad and my phone for entertainment, but I should have this row, 23, all to myself. So hopefully that's what continues to happen. Looking good, shaping up for a nice trip back to Chicago on this red-eye flight. We'll see how it goes. As you can see, not only did I have this row to myself, but almost every other seat on the flight was empty. It was almost eerie. Now look, I get it. This 777 registered N773UA is 29 years old and is going to hit 30 years old in the fall of 2024. But from the moment I got on this plane, I just had a weird feeling. Immediately as I was boarding, I noticed a weird smell, almost like algae growing on a pond. Also, some of the cabin lights were flickering. Now that's all stuff that I can look past. However, the crew on this flight, they were something. I get that everybody who's a flight attendant works hard at their jobs, and I'm not discrediting this crew for that at all. But they all just looked kind of dirty and disheveled. They also looked like they didn't want to be there. Yes, this was a red-eye from LA to Chicago on a Monday night, but still, you can show some decency. And I do hate complaining about my flights because truthfully, I enjoy every flight I've ever been on. Except this one. This one just was not good. And it's not even because it was a red-eye. I can notoriously sleep anywhere at any time as long as I'm tired enough, which I definitely was. I do want to take a minute and also talk about something that is totally not United's fault here. About 2 rows in front of me in the middle, there's this guy who I can only describe as sketchy. He was wearing all black and he looked paranoid the entire flight. He was looking back and forth, and I was the closest person to him, so I was kind of on high alert the whole flight. Because of that, I only got a few hours of sleep, but it was sleep nonetheless. Shortly after we departed, the crews came around with an offering of snacks and drinks, and that was it until they collected trash around the time of our descent beginning into Chicago. As my head bobbed up from the window, I realized we had begun our descent into Chicago. Now, this was only my second time flying on United, and my first experience on another one of their 777s from Dulles to LA in January was completely the opposite of this flight. To say I was disappointed in this flight would be an understatement. As weird as a flight as it was, I was always happy to be going through the clouds heading towards a new airport. I was also very excited to board my next flight on a brand new 737 MAX 8. If I could pick anything good about this flight, it was the landing. I actually think that was the smoothest landing I've ever experienced on any flight. I could not even tell the exact moment we touched the ground, so hats off to whomever was flying.
Alright, well, we've made it to Chicago O'Hare, the second Chicago airport I've visited in the last 6 months, and we've beat the plane here. The inbound plane coming from Anchorage just landed right after ours, but we're going to mosey on over to the gate. It was a 5-minute walk from my gate, so couldn't have made it any easier, and see what this 737 MAX 8 is looking like.
Thankfully, like I said, my next gate was only a few doors down from my arrival. My hour-and-a-half layover gave me some time to explore United's terminal at O'Hare and grab a cup of coffee to wake me up a little bit more. Before I knew it, it was time to board this bird.
Alright, well, after some moseying around in the sea gates, made it to my gate. Plane just got here from Fairbanks, Alaska. I'm surprised that they didn't have this thing sitting at the gate overnight. That's just me. It's about 15 minutes behind schedule right now, which isn't a major issue yet, but as we saw in Portland, a small delay can turn into hours. Let's just hope that we get out of here as soon as possible.
And just like that, we were on board. Remember that 15-minute delay? It was eradicated by the fantastic work of the cleaning crews and gate agents at Chicago. They weren't messing around. Also, I've noticed that United's boarding process is one of the faster ones that I've experienced in the United States. All of these factors combined led us to an on-time departure for the Sunshine State. This flight was the exact opposite of the last flight. The cabin was bright and clean, the crew was happy and friendly, and I just felt welcomed and was in a positive mood no matter how tired I was. Shortly after takeoff, the crew came around with a beverage service where I was quick to jump on my second cup of coffee for the day. Talk about a smooth flight, this one was exactly that. I also got the chance to try out the Bluetooth Connect feature that United is trying out on the newer planes in their fleet. One of my biggest gripes with seatback IFE on Delta, United, or American is their lack of Bluetooth connectivity. Now that United is phasing this in, I feel it will be a rather short amount of time before we see this on other carriers. The connection process was insanely seamless and easy, and no mishaps were had. This was truly one of the best economy flights I've been on, only rivaling that of my Delta A321neo flight from Salt Lake City to DC a few months ago. Even though this video is called The Good and the Bad of United Airlines, it's not really a dig on United. Aging fleets affect every airline out there, and the newer, sleeker planes of today are just simply more comfortable to ride on. However, I do wish that United put some more effort into making this specific airframe just a little bit more comfortable. I get that their domestic fleet of 777s isn't the best, but when you see what airlines like Delta are doing to refurbish their 757s and 767s, it just makes me wish that United could do the same to their 777s. And to the crew, I just wish they seemed happier to be there. There was one flight attendant at the front door of the plane during boarding, and they didn't even greet me. They were just handing out the headphones. Not a word was said. If anything, the worst part about these flights was the random dude on my red eye that just kept looking back and making awkward eye contact with me. In reality, had he not been there, this video could have been a lot different. These two flights were both literally and figuratively night and day differences. I'm sure you can really say the same about any airline, especially if you're not as well versed in aviation as someone like me. Make sure, when you go to book, you look at the aircraft type. I was excited to fly on a 777 again, but disappointed at the end of the first flight. I was also very excited to fly on the MAX 8, and I was not let down. Not only was it a brand new plane, but the crew was absolutely excellent. They were smiling as soon as we got on board, handing out alcohol wipes for me to clean my area. And they were also very professional, and the pilot was very apologetic about the last flight arriving 15 minutes late. As we touched down into sunny Miami, I was feeling as refreshed as ever. My second time on United is what I would consider a learning experience and gain more familiarity with the airline and their fleet as a whole. It wasn't bad and it wasn't good, but it was surely something that showed the duality of one of the biggest airlines in the world. I'd like to thank you guys so much for watching this video, and I do hope that you enjoyed it. Stay tuned for more content coming from this exact same trip, and I will see you guys in the next video.